Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. If you're a longtime listener, you should recognize Shannon. She's back on the podcast. It's been a little bit over 2 years. How time flies. But yeah, she's just on here to give us an update and talk about what she's been up to. And like before, just talk all things health and fitness and everything else. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Shannon, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I can't believe it's been 2 years. I can believe it, but I can't, time really does fly, especially with the bodybuilding. Oh my god, next thing you know, you've been training and all of a sudden you're not anymore and what the heck is happening? It's been hard.
I mean, yeah, it's coming up on in June. It'll be my 6th year doing this, and I just can't believe it's been 6 years since then. It's crazy and quite a journey. But what have you been up to these last 2 years?
Yeah, it's been a lot going on. I was supposed to be in my huge show season this year. This was supposed to be my pro debut year. It was all planned out. The year after I won my pro card, we were chatting. If anyone remembers, my dog at the time, she wasn't doing so well. So I spent the whole year after that taking care of her, making sure she was good. We were going back and forth for chemo again, and I was really just giving her my everything, soaking that all in. Still training, but kind of changed my priority with that. And then I did end up losing her a year ago now. And then after that, I was like, okay, perfect. Okay, not perfect. Let's be clear. But priority shifted to bodybuilding, and it was awesome. I was having a freaking killer off season, looking really good. Things were just coming up Millhouse. And I had started training with someone, and I'm fully gonna throw this person under the bus because they got injured too. So I'm like, listen, this was all your fault, you son of a bitch. Training was going really well. I was looking really great. And in August of last year, I ended up tearing something in my shoulder. But Canadian healthcare system is really amazing. So it took me 7 months to actually be seen and have someone take me seriously and get a diagnosis. So that was great. Just living in pain, man. Like couldn't pull my pants on, couldn't pull a blanket onto me. So that just sent me. So I was going really well, kind of screwed up this whole season, unfortunately, but starting to feel a bit better. Things are kind of coming around, training again. So I've been really kind of hanging out on the coaching side a bit. I'm not coaching people per se, but I did take up a lot of posing coaching, which I know you kind of noticed that. And I've been really enjoying being on that side, still being involved in it. Got a lot of newbies. The newbies are really fun, but I took on one pro athlete, and this one is so near and dear to my heart. It is my best friend and my coach, Miss Alicia Mills. I was dying when she asked me. I'm like, oh my God, do I do it? Oh God, what if I screw this up? Like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, but it's so stressful and it's been amazing. So been really enjoying doing that and watching her come along. I'm stage mom right now. You know that episode or that scene in Mean Girls where she gets up with the video camera and she's giving her, yeah, that's me. That's me. And I cannot wait. We've got the Toronto Pro coming up, and I'm going to be up on stage right in the front row being like, that's my girl. Come on, baby, let's do it.
When I went to the first show that I went, there was about 5 or 6 of those, and I was like, "Oh my god, they're actually like real." Like it wasn't just a stereotype in movies. Where like, yeah, they were out there like with their cameras, and they were like working it with them, and I was just like, "Oh my god, it's actually true." But hey, so coming up Millhouse, I've never heard that expression before. Is that a Canadian expression?
What?
Never heard it before.
From The Simpsons.
Okay. Oh, you meant like the character. Okay, I thought it was like an actual. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah, of course I know the Simpsons. But yeah, well, coming up Millhouse, I thought you.
Fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm more of a Flanders guy. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I have never heard that.
Sexy Flanders.
Um, see, the thing is, when he takes his shirt off, people are always shocked. That's the thing about Ned Flanders. He's too
Yep.
humble. He's too humble to reveal it. But just this whole attitude adjustment and this whole mindset change that you've had, how did you deal with that at first? When, I mean, especially when you're a competitive bodybuilder, you identify a lot of times like that. Just like when I was a professional, just like when I was a baseball player, I identified as that.
Hmm.
So how hard was that for you to sort of get that out of your mind and be like, hey, this is not where I'm at right now in my life?
It was bad. I spent the first couple months like off the rails. I won't even try to pretend I didn't. I would say from August till about January, truthfully, I was not good. I wasn't handling it well. I was miserable. I was just pissed off all the time. It's really hard on myself. I was trying to do everything I could, but the problem with like such an injury too and not having anybody to help me figure out what was going on, you have no control. And of course, us in bodybuilding, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure a lot of, the listeners will agree, we're control freaks, right? We just are. That's how we excel in a sport like this, right? Everything other than showing up show day is in our control. So for me to lose that and not even really have an idea of when it happened or how it happened, it wasn't when I got injured, training was going great. It wasn't like I was in the gym and I went to do a lift and oh shit, something happened. I just woke up one day and I couldn't move. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And they're like, well, and this was a wonderful conversation with my regular doctor, and she's a dink. And she goes, well, with all the years of your steroid abuse, you may have put yourself into early menopause and got frozen shoulder. I'm like, oh, you friggin' ah. So anyway, so that was the working theory for a while was I just had frozen shoulder, and I was like, maybe, but why all of a sudden and being so young, right?
Wait, first of all,
And
I never heard of frozen shoulder before. And how does menopause impact your
yeah,
shoulder in any way? I would have never connected those two.
right. Totally agree with you. So just something that tends to happen with older women. So oftentimes women that are kind of peri or premenopausal in that 50 plus category tend to get what's called frozen shoulder, where they have no idea what happened, how it happened. It locks up, it's painful, they can't do anything, and all of a sudden they wake up one day and it's totally back to normal. That's yet to happen to me. I'm still in a lot of pain. It's getting better, but it's a really big struggle. And even in and out of the gym these days, like I'm just getting back in. I would say probably mid-April, I really started getting back into training again. So it's only been a couple weeks. We're kind of at the end of April now, right? So it's been a long process. I was trying to do just legs for a while, but I couldn't grip, couldn't grab anything. Even with lightweight, you want to grab and hold down on a machine. Well, I couldn't do it. I couldn't write my name. Like I had to change everything around at work. So I was feeling really useless and I was being really hard on myself, kind of circling back to those first few months. It was really tough going from being able to do everything to I can't do anything for myself. I can't even write my name. What are we doing here? So that was really hard. And I think too, you spend 11 years of your life working for a goal and you finally get there and you're like, oh my God, it's my time. Let's go. I'm so ready. You have all the focus in the world and it's like carpet out from under your feet. You're like, just kidding. Like, come on. So coming to terms with that is really difficult. I think if I didn't have my friends, like we were just kind of the group chat that's just blowing up on there, I've got 5 other bodybuilders. There's really no one up because we're up in Northern Ontario, right? There's nothing up here. There's Ali and I are the only pros just up here in the middle of nowhere,
You
kind
got
of doing
hockey. At
nothing.
least you got hockey.
We got a lot of hockey. We got a lot of hockey. We got a lot of, I don't know about you, got a lot of young gym guys with their pajama pants and their clogs. That's all you got going on up here. But without their support, I think I probably would have spiraled out of control for sure. And being able to be on the other side with them, they're all prepping and competing right now has really helped me kind of keep it together and get out of my own head, right? You're so on that narrow path with it's yourself and this is what you're doing. And not to say that I forgot about them and what was going on with them, but it is a little bit of a selfish sport. So to be able to kind of step back and be there for them now has brought me into a bit of a different relationship with bodybuilding I'm really grateful for. But I still want to get back on stage or I'm going to die.
Now, I hate to rag on the, Canadian healthcare system so much because, everyone rags on the US one as well, but like how the hell do you wait 7 months to fix an injury? Like how is that even possible?
Yeah. No, ours is really bad. And that wasn't even to fix it. That was just to get an x-ray to start. So it took me that long to get an x-ray. And then you got to wait a couple extra weeks to get an ultrasound. And then you got to get a couple weeks after that for an MRI. It was just waiting and waiting and waiting. And to be able to get in it, they're like, take your Advil, stop working out, like readjust your life and you're fine, like get over it. Even where I am, so I'm a couple hours away from my friends. They're in a bigger city. I'm in a small town. I couldn't get physio, couldn't get anything here without being on like a 3+ month wait list. I'm like, you guys don't understand. I'm physically debilitated right now. So I've been having to travel out of town to get care even as well. So, we can rag on the Canadian healthcare system. It's shit. We don't have to pay for things, but you gotta wait. Good luck.
with all the US flaws, probably within a month you would have got all that stuff done. If any, I mean, that's like on the long end of it thing, because I've had injuries too
Yeah.
where it's like I've even had like broken arm where literally it's fixed that day or they do something that day literally. So, but again, yeah, there's differences to it. I don't want to rag on it too much because as polite as Canadians are, sometimes I've always thought with how polite some Canadians are that like deep down they're all like very psychopaths. So like if you ever awaken that in them, it's like good luck because all that rage is just built up where they're just so passive aggressive, just like Minnesotans. We're so passive aggressive, but when
Yeah.
it finally reaches that boiling point, we just go way over.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've known not to mess with Canadians too much because I do not want to be the first person to find that out. So we're gonna, steer a little bit clear of that, but just the
No,
whole.
we're good.
No, I know, and this half this podcast is a joke anyway, or just making jokes basically. So, but again, there are some idiots out there that don't understand that I literally have to hold their hand through and just be like, I'm joking. I'm not being completely.
So sensitive for the love of all that is holy. Yeah. What a
Yeah,
what a world we live in.
yeah, exactly. So what was your literal response when she said that this is because of your steroid abuse that you that all this is happening?
I just laughed and I was like, we're doing this again, you know? I think you and I had chatted about that before, even too. The second I was really open with her about that was the second that my care went right to hell in a handbasket. Like, oh, I don't want to interpret your bloods. Like, oh, no, you can't request it. No, you're not using the system for that. Blah 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 blah. So I often, if I'm going, it's been a while, but if I have to go get blood work, pre, post, mid cycle, things like that, because that's what we do to take care of ourselves. I either have to go to walk-in clinics and give them like a funny reason why I want it. I've had to pay for it a couple times too, just to get requisitions done. It is what it is. I just laugh now. I'm like, fine, whatever. Judge me. Go ahead. I think it's ignorance, right? In terms of just having no idea and not being comfortable with it. Whatever. It is what it is. I laughed. I said, sure.
Oh, but I'm just shocked that she'd even come to that conclusion because it's like maybe like I
Yeah.
don't know the percentage of that, but it's like to automatically just jump to
Yeah.
that without really
Yeah.
doing any research.
Mhm.
But so
Yeah.
honestly, do you think that you maybe just slept on it funny and then you just woke up like that and that's just how it happened? Because or
You know what? I would say it's probably an overtime type of injury. I would say repetition, repetitive overtime. I did have some rotator cuff issues when I played volleyball competitively and then kind of switched out from there and then ended up cheering in college. So I've never been easy on my body. I would say it's probably just long time coming type of thing that just one day was like, you know what, we're done here. And that's okay. Like I said, kind of in the beginning, I'm pretty confident it was the person I was training with who kind of changed up what we were doing because he also ended up blowing his shoulder. So take from that as you will, but I was training really well. Things were going great. You adjusted how I was doing things. I got injured. A few months later, you get injured similarly. Eh, eh,
no, I
you know,
we got to go on a quick volleyball tangent though because I love volleyball. I have I dated someone in
let's
high school that was a
go.
volleyball player, and I fell in love with it. I'm a huge Nebraska Cornhusker volleyball fan because they're one of the top teams in the nation. But I do got to ask. Is that uniform really necessary, honestly, for volleyball? Because you look at what the men have to wear and then you look at what the women have to wear, and it doesn't seem. And I've talked to some volleyball players about it. It's like, oh, yeah, it's totally durable for the sport. And I was like, really? Then why don't the men wear the same exact tightness? So,
Hey, some of them do. There are some teams up there where the guys wear some pretty tight bike short looking things. And I mean, sometimes the fans like to see a butt cheek here or there. I'm not going to lie.
that's
But
true.
I like it. Things stay out of the way. Nice, tight. You're moving, you're agile.
Oh, I'm
It is
not
what it
I'm
is.
not
I think,
dissing it at all. I'm just asking if it's 100% necessary. Now, again, as a male,
let's
I do
go.
enjoy it, but also at the time you're like, is this really necessary? But again, I'm never going to complain about it. I'm just asking if it's necessary.
It's gotten, I would say it's a bit different since I've played though, too, right? Like we're talking 15 years ago now. So things have changed a little bit and their uniforms are nicer, tighter, a little sleeker. I would have liked to wear them truthfully. The ones that they have now, I'd be down to wear that all day, every day. They look a hell of a lot better than some of the stuff I was wearing.
The only thing that sucks though is when it's that tight, you have to be in tip-top shape constantly. Otherwise, it's going to show.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some people you're like, whoa, but it is what it is. They don't care. They're still athletes
I
moving around, right?
I just want to see that 7-foot freak that just doesn't even need to jump. Their head they just use their
Oh,
head to
yeah.
block everything. Like I'm waiting for
I
that.
got one
It
of those
hasn't
up
happened
here.
yet. They do?
So I've got a buddy and he plays volleyball and he was one of the people I played with when we played mixed too. I kid you not, this guy is 6'4". He's got the longest arms you've ever damn seen. He'll literally just, I can't lift this one, still sore. Arm up over the head, just blah, like good luck. You can't pass him.
I got to remind you that 6'4" is a little bit different than 7 feet tall.
No, but like once he lifts his arms
Let's
up, damn near
like
7 feet.
just
Like
get Shaq on the court.
lanky.
Just get Shaq on the volleyball court just once and just see what I mean. I'm just but no, it is crazy, especially when you realize just how hard some of it hit. And then I saw a men's because they don't even really televise the men's college volleyball here. They only do it for like the national championship. How hard those dudes hit it. It is scary.
Yeah. Some of these girls too. It's
Oh yeah, yeah.
insane. I've gotten like bruised up to hell and back because after I had blown my shoulder there, I didn't tear it at the time when I was younger, but I was a left side, switched from lefty into libero because it was just couldn't save it for my life. And I took some pretty hard hits from some young women. Holy Jesus. Like some pretty impressive women up here too.
My last and only critique of the sport, do you have to celebrate after every goddamn point as well? Every single time, even when you don't get the point, you celebrate as if you do, where you got to get together, a little tap on the butt, everything like that. Like you celebrate every single time where it's like, celebrate
Yeah.
celebrate if you have like a big volley and then you get like an impressive point, or if you get like an ace or something like that, then yeah, celebrate. But like every single time, you don't have to gather together and just reassure yourself. It's like, come on, act like you're there before.
Different camaraderie, right? Like
No, I know.
different sports, different things. I'm all down
I
for
think
the
it's
butt
different with
touches.
guys and girls too, where even if you look at like
Yeah.
how they chant in softball versus how they chant in baseball, I think that might be a little bit of a case of it too. But I just see that and I'm like, first of all, if I was the reason that we didn't get a point, like I am not going to go to hell and be like, yeah, I did great. Yeah, all that. That's just my little tangent. I've always thought that. I've said it to everyone. It's like you don't have to celebrate every single time. But again, I know it's
Yeah.
just it's a part of the sport, too as well. But back to your competing. What was that like to just see yourself slowly changing? I mean, obviously you've still, kept on some size, but like what was that like to see yourself
Yeah.
slowly shrink a tad?
You know what? It's so funny. I said it a few times now because I've had people ask me, like, are you prepping? Are you whatever? I will say I have no business still maintaining the physique I have for the shit that I've not been doing. You know what I mean? I will 100% say God bless some genetics, but also the amount of time I've spent under the bar shows. And I'm so grateful for that. You build it for so long that as long as you're not, completely going off the rails in terms of like food and things like that, you're able to maintain really well. So I'm really happy with where I'm at. I'm very grateful for my body and its ability to hold on to things. I'm smaller. I definitely have a bit of a complex where I'm like, I'm so skinny. This is stupid. Because, you know, I feel it and I see it. And I've only lost like kind of around, I actually just did my measurements for my posing suit coming up here. And I've lost about an inch kind of everywhere. And it seems not like a lot. I would say my thing that I noticed the most because I haven't been training upper body is my shoulders and my chest are so small and I'm just feeling flat, small shoulders. And I'm like, where'd my pumpkin delts go? So that's been difficult, like feeling and seeing that. I'm really grateful where my body's been holding. I'm very happy with that. When I was down in Florida in the wintertime, that heat was just keeping me shredded. It was so awesome. And I was doing a lot of cardio because I was just walking everywhere. So I was looking pretty freaking good for a while there. I'm not going to lie to you.
Have you ever thought about just training the uninjured shoulder and just getting it to be like so extreme that you look like a hunchback basically then?
Just look like an absolute
Yeah.
freak.
Just one side is
Come on.
massive and then the other side is just like normal size like that. Hey, you would get more attention through that than through anything. Like that's how you become social media famous. If you just literally develop almost where you're literally just like this the entire time because the one side's so huge that you're just dragging the other side. I mean, hey.
That probably would have been on the list of things I've thought about. I was going full out, like, what can I do? Where can I go from this? If I can't compete in figure again, then what can I do? And what can I train? And what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to do men's bikini, maybe. Like, I was just freaking out. Just kidding. But, I've totally thought about that a million times. Like, what if I can't do figure? Now, what else do I do? So I was thinking even maybe I'll do wellness. But I love the symmetry of figure. God, I love the symmetry.
If, like, again, knock on wood, if you got injured so much that you couldn't compete at all anymore, where do you think all this energy would go? What do you think you would end up doing then?
Putting more energy into coaching, probably. I know it's very oversaturated. So I really like the posing coaching, and especially as I kind of mentioned, being up where I am and there's nothing up here. There's no one, there's nothing. The closest, where there's some more pros and some more coaching is about 5 hours away from here. So, if any of the girls up in this area wanted to work with someone for posing, they're driving down to Toronto, or they're driving, even further than that. So I've been able to build myself a really lovely clientele because I've got a lot of girls that are getting involved and getting started into it. I shit on social media a lot, but thankfully, because of social media, you see a lot more of the younger girls coming up wanting to do it. So I've been able to build a really nice clientele up here. So I'd probably just put a lot more energy into that, truthfully, because I love bodybuilding so much. I want to make sure that I'm still involved in it, but I would probably go that route.
As much as I also blast social media, yeah, this podcast would not be a thing without social media. This is the only reason that
Right.
it's around in the first place. So I do have to give it, its praises. But what is probably the biggest struggle that you deal with first time clients when it comes to posing?
Moving plywood, basically. They just I find a lot of people tend to come to me with no spatial awareness or comfort in their own bodies. And I find that for me, it was a lot for me to learn how I'm like, how do you not know where your arms are? Like, how do you I had to really learn the patience with that because it was just mind blowing for so long to me. I'm like, okay, step your left foot, and you would watch them like deer to headlights, like move like a freaking board. And I'm like, why is it so hard? It took me a long time to really learn that patience and get into that. But I think that's the hardest thing with newbies. I've really stopped doing newbies in video calls. I really like working with them in person. A lot of the girls that have done things before, I've worked with them before. I'm easy on a video call, but in person, I need to have them to get started because I'm like, you have no awareness of where your limbs are. What are you doing? Like, what is happening?
Well, and especially when it comes to just showing the fact that you're gonna have to be showing every body part all at once, and a lot of people just don't understand that, where they don't realize that, like, even if you're doing like the front relax, like you got to be doing your legs too. You got to be doing like everything. It just got to become a whole symmetry thing. So, what advice do you have for people, for competitors, especially figure ones that with the front lat spread? Because I know that is the hardest pose for so many people.
It is. It really is. And I'll answer that in a second there. But one of the main things that I do in my first sessions with people is I make sure that we're breaking every single piece. I always start bottom to top because, like you're saying, you have to be aware of every other muscle, even though you're in your front spread. What's going on all the way down your body? All of that has to be activated at the same time. So I make sure that we break it up. All our sessions we're doing, okay, well, I don't care what's going on in your upper body right now. We're focusing on your legs. So I want you to feel from your toes up to your calves, up to your quads. And we work all the way up to make sure that each piece is activated and they're feeling how that's going. Lats 100%. That is one of the things that I deal with the most. I would say the cue that I think I have the most success with is trying to get them to push out to the walls. I'm always kind of saying out, right? But that's not with the arms. So I'm always saying I want you to think you're pushing away, 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 and then dropping your arms kind of naturally. I'm like, you're framing your body with your arms, but you're pushing those lats out to the walls. That's one that I've been really successful with, is having them pushing out. Similarly on even the side poses. I'm like, aside, away. Don't scrunch in, don't scrunch back, always thinking away. That's been a pretty successful one, I would say.
How do competitors even breathe, especially when they're doing like the pose offs where it might last for
Mhm.
minutes? Like, how are they able to do that
Yep,
and not have their belly come out a little bit, or not have like
right.
them lose it? How do they do it?
Yeah, a lot of that is your vacuuming, right? And again, that awareness of your body control. So I have all of my clients working on vacuuming at all times. I've got them doing that and learning how to breathe up through the chest and breathing down through the obliques versus into that belly. So the more they're practicing that, the easier it is in the posing. So working on it in your endurance types. I also have a lot of them do, those yoga wheels? So working on when you're bending yourself into that yoga wheel, you're still vacuuming through it. So you're in that uncomfortable position that you're going to be in while you're posing. And I'm like, breathe through your chest. We're just working through it. So I have them send me videos. Sometimes we'll do those in person, but not usually. A lot of the in person is spent with proper posing. I'll have them send me videos of how they're breathing, how they're doing it, making sure they're really working on that kind of belly button to spine, keeping everything tight and tipped and really breathing out through that chest and down through those obliques. And it takes a lot of practice. Vacuuming seems easy. People are like, oh yeah, you just suck in. You do, but you still have to be able to exchange the air and maintain that tightness. So that's a really big one to help control, especially, I mean, any class for sure, but figure girls especially, because the way we're twisting and contorting our bodies, there's so much going on that the more control you have in that abdomen, the better you are to kind of cheat things too, especially in twistings and on the side, keep your abdomen tight. We can cheat hips and stuff like that and kind of make that shape really pop.
It's so fascinating to me how when I really started doing a lot of bodybuilders like 5 years ago, no one was vacuuming at all. No one really knew what it
Hmm.
was, and now everyone does it, and it's like a staple for everyone. Are there any
Huge.
benefits to vacuuming just for someone who doesn't compete at all? Is there any, like, other health benefits to it?
Tons. I mean, other health benefits I can't speak to, but I know for myself and for a lot of other people that I chum and chat with as well, in general, for keeping that shape in the waist, keeping it tight and really having the control even in your off season, it makes a big difference because you're not getting that same kind of laxity in the gut. Whether you're putting on weight or not, you still have the control. So you'll notice that, even I'm sure you'll notice it after I say it, and people might take a look. You'll see some of the girls posting in off season and they're still looking pretty tight, even though you're like, okay, like you're a little chubbier, and we all get that way. Like me in off season, I have cheeks for days, but it's being able to keep that control really helps with the midsection in every aspect. So even in off season, even in your prep, vacuums are so important for that control. Makes a big difference.
I mean, the closest I ever came to a vacuum before this is that there was a guy in high school that could always do that belly roll thing where he could just make it roll
Oh
like a
yeah.
like a wave basically, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that's the closest thing
Yeah,
I
yeah,
ever
yeah.
remember to vacuum really control. But yeah, that was always a nice little party trick that we'd have him do because he was like super defined, so it was like an 8 pack, and then he would just roll it, and then it would be a nice little party trick that we'd do if we ever got bored or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's about the only thing I can remember, with that. But the 11 years that you've been competing, what has that been like just to see how much the sport's changed, and just especially for the figure division, just how much more size they are having people come on, where it is gotten to the point where, yeah, I've had physique competitors, or I mean, I've had figure competitors now that would be bikini competitors when I first started, and then,
Hmm.
physique competitors that would be figure competitors, and just it's ridiculous what it's come
Yeah.
to.
It's been crazy. It's been so crazy to watch it change, from Nicole Wilkin era kind of to where we're at now. But it's interesting that you asked me that. I don't know if you follow along with the IFBB and the things that they say, but Tyler Mannion had made a point to say this year, girls, enough. Like he's trying to kind of pull us back, right? So I've been seeing that now over the last couple shows, even of this season. We're kind of looking more toward rewarding, bringing it back, keeping Sid as this is what we want. Stop getting so big, you guys. And you hear that in other places and other podcasts and stuff where they're like, God, there's not really a hard line between categories in a lot of ways anymore. And he had actually brought it up, not even just with us bigger girls, but he had said bikini, your wellness girls, your physique girls, like, guys, chill. Like you're getting huge. Like relax. So it's been really funny to see that. I think part of that was the social media inception. I fully do, because then you're seeing it more and people are pushing harder and wanting to be better. And it's kind of all that keeping up with the Joneses stuff, right? So everyone just kind of kept doing more and more and more. And now he's going, okay, relax. That's that's kind of been, my impression of this season so far, anyways, and what he did actually say. I think I really loved the Nicole Wilkins era. It was very beautiful, still soft, still full, still feminine, still fit as hell. But now we're kind of moving. It's hard because I like both. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really like being huge and shredded and just looking like a freak. So I had this conversation recently with my one of my girlfriends, and she's like, if they tell you you can't be that big anymore, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, you know, you you got to play the game a little bit, but do I want to get softer or do I want to stay kind of hard and not win? Well, you play that line. I think it's been crazy to see it change. I think some of these girls are so impressive. It's just mind blowing to me. But I, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. That's kind of my thought with that. And as far as where I want to go with it, I don't I don't think that I'm willing to push any further than I already have. Truthfully, it's been a bit of a point of contention lately as well. I've been back out of it for so long that I'm like, wow, how much now am I willing to kind of jump back into? So I think that I don't want to push anymore. So I kind of do like that he's pulling us back a little bit.
And for everyone out there listening, she's talking about her weed addiction, everyone. She's not talking about anything else. Just for the people out there that are for the people out there that are just concerned about
That
that.
is
Yeah.
still in
That's
full force.
yeah, that is
In
still in full
full
for
force.
I mean, again, you know, I didn't want to tempt fate too much with that, but yeah, of course. That's the thing that I've always noticed about bodybuilding though, is that a lot of them do partake in that more than you would ever suspect. Because there have been times where literally the second after we're done recording, they start lighting one up, and like I was shocked the first time I saw it. I was like, "Isn't that like? Wouldn't that be like bad for you?" But I just really, I mean, it's way more. I'd say it's more than half the guests I've had on, and I was shocked to learn that like that many people partake in it. But again, when you're living that stressful of a life, I guess to relax every once in a while, it really does help.
Sleep, right? That's the big thing. And I mean, between my regular jobs in bodybuilding, I'm a Rolodex in my brain all the time. So I kind of used it as a vice and I found that it really helped. And especially, the stress with my dog being really sick at the time, it was legalized in Canada. I did start using it a lot more. I have been stepping back a little bit lately because I find myself the next day, I'm like, okay, I had the dumb. Like, ooh, I'm not thinking so straight right now, but
Especially with your job. Good God, if you show up just absolutely
yeah,
stupid, like that's gonna be a
can't.
hilarious day.
You can't. You just can't, right? So I've kind of stepped back a bit, but man, it does help with that crazy. Your mind is constantly going. You're kind of in that point in prep too. I find I pull it out when I'm like deeper in prep and I need to be really focused and sharp and on it. But that big chunk of it where you're not sleeping, you're thinking about everything under the sun. You really need to just chill out. That's my favorite. Just kick back, smoke a joint, relax, do your posing. That's how I've done some of my best posing. I'm not gonna lie, and then you just chill. Just everything's good.
Without digging too deep into, do you think that your job has helped you when it comes to realizing like you don't want to push things too far just because you have seen people that might not have, like done what bodybuilders do, but like just seen the effects that stuff can have on your body? Do you think that that really helped in your decision to be like, hey, I don't want to push this so hard that I end up like someone that I'm looking at right now?
No,
Okay.
honestly, for me, my biggest thing is I'm one of those people, and some people are really lucky. I'm one of those people that get pretty slapped with side effects hard. I get acne really bad. I'm actually in the middle of this is my fourth course of Accutane. It gets so bad and so freaking painful that I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. And I'm talking like just enough. Like I take nothing, just a little bit, and it's like, wow. I'm like, okay, like I find myself the older I get, the more sensitive I'm getting to it, and the longer I do it. So that's my big thing. As far as the rest, I'm like, forget, I don't care. Like I'm pretty good to go pretty hard into stuff. I don't really care. Especially when it came to my pro card, I'd do anything. I didn't care. Like what effect was it gonna have on me? Didn't care. But now I'm kind of like, ugh, God, do I want to even do that again because of those types of effects? The rest of it, nah, I don't really care.
Why don't you just stop complaining and woman up and do like 1,000 milligrams a week, and then honestly,
I
like
know.
honestly, your acne can't get worse, to be completely honest. So it's like it's you've already had it anyway, so it's like you might as well
Somebody
go
said
all
that
in.
to me. Someone freaking said that to me. He goes, you already got it. What's gonna make it worse? I'm like, it's not going away. Like, come on. But yeah, I find that the more, and I don't know if there's science behind this. There probably is. Someone maybe can answer this. But I find the longer I compete, and the longer I utilize PEDs, even though, like I said, I don't use very much, thank God, but I'm so sensitive. And the longer I do it, the more sensitive I am quicker. I used to be able to get away with, I'm pretty deep into a prep. I've been, on a cycle for 20 weeks and I don't look really any different. Then I'd start getting some acne here and there. And now it's like 2 days in a row and I'm like, whoa, and it's really freaking painful.
I will just say though that is honestly one of the biggest blessings in disguise though, because if you didn't have that severe reaction, who knows what you would do and what you would have done. So like that's your body's way of
Yeah,
telling you that like, hey,
true.
I want to live to be at least like 70 or 80 years old. So that is a
Yeah,
blessing in disguise outside of the sport, because yeah, then you talk to some of the people where, they could do, probably like 10 times what you're doing and they don't even have one side effect. And then you're like, well, it's good that your
yeah,
body doesn't do that, but then you don't know how it's going to look 20, 30 years from now
true.
when all that comes. So you can look at that at least, in a positive way, but just when you're dealing with all these competitors and you're competing, what do you give them for advice just on the mental side of the sport? Because it's not talked about as much, just
Hmm.
how you deal with all this mentally, because people only post
Yeah.
the stuff on social media of like them working out and stuff like that. They don't post the emotional times that this causes. I mean, there was one woman who I really appreciate,
Hmm.
showed her like crying after she was doing like chest presses, and their trainer come over and gave her a hug. And it's like, people don't show those days. So what advice do you have for people just how to deal with that mental side of it? Because that is the most shocking thing to people, is just how much of a mental sport this is.
Hmm. Well, I mean, similarly, when I say with the posing of your spatial awareness of your body, you have to be very aware of yourself in general. Be aware before you start, be aware kind of midway through. And, a lot of the things that kind of come to fruition as well are secondary to PED use. I'll say that. It's so true. You get a little bit lost in the sauce. You're thinking not quite straight. You're being
People don't
super
understand
hard
that
on yourself.
they are addictive. Like that's one thing that never gets talked about. Where it's like it's not like addictive like that, but it's your mind just gets like with the
Yeah.
results that they get, you can get addicted to them for that. It's like it's kind of like gambling, where it's like you don't get physically addicted
Mhm.
to it, but like mentally you get addicted to it.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with that statement. I'm more so saying, it does alter your perception of things. It fully does. I would say, myself, I'll use myself as an example. I find that I get a little bit kind of up and down when I'm using things, and you find yourself being a little bit more, you know, sensitive. You find that things that kind of trigger you that wouldn't normally, you're like, why did that piss me off? Or why am I so upset this time? Or why this, why that? So we just need to be mindful of ourselves, of our thoughts, and not ruminate on thoughts too. That's a big one. And that comparison, I find, with these younger girls that I'm working with too, and social media, their biggest mental health struggles are coming from comparison. So I'm watching them and I'm hearing them and they're sending me things. They're like, oh my God, like this is this. I'm never going to look like this. Like I can't step on stage right now. I'm fat. I'm like, you've been training for not even a year. You're looking at this girl who's a pro, who has been doing this for so long and doing 7 times what you've ever even considered doing. Relax. But they're crying and they're like, I'm not going to look like this. Like, oh my God. I'm like, would you breathe? Like you're gonna get there. And I think just being really aware of yourself, how you handle things, how you receive things. And I know that's a pretty broad statement, but it's true. You have to be aware of your own mental state and your thoughts. Like, does this thought make sense? Okay, I'm freaking out right now. Let me sit back for a second and assess, why am I actually freaking out? Is it justified? Maybe. In the moment, it might have seemed that way, but you got to really be able to kind of look in with yourself and think like, where is this thought coming from and does it make sense?
Well, I got a question. Why are you being so open? Because honestly, like only like 20 other guests have like been this open about the stuff of it, and it's like very rare for
Mhm.
me. So again, and I didn't plan on it being like this or anything like that. Just how it happened to be. Like I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, let's just talk about this. But like it's because it's rare for me. So like, why are you being this open? Just and again, it's a sad thing because I do want more people to be open about it, and I
Yeah.
understand why people aren't 100%, but I don't want to say
I
why,
have
but like
nothing to hide.
okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
The thing is that I don't have anything to hide. And I mean, it's true, right? You're asking me, the mental things and the questions and do you want me to give you a bullshit answer? Because I can.
Well, I'm just used to that for so long that I'll get the BS answer where it's like, oh yeah, it's just this, where they don't mention one part about the obvious stuff. And again, I never bring that up unless my rule is that unless the guest brings it up, I never bring it up. If they say something about like Pete or something like that, then I might ask them a question. And if they want to answer, they answer, and if they don't, then I don't bring it up again. But so yeah, but yeah, I'm used to the bullshit answers. That's the problem. And so when I finally hear a truthful answer, it's like, what the hell's going on here?
My experience, right?
Yeah.
This is my experience. You're asking me the questions and I'm just letting you know because again, I have nothing to hide. And if somebody listens to it and they agree or they're like, didn't think of that, that's true, then perfect. If one person listens to it, cool. If two people listen to this and go, oh, Shannon, what a fucking idiot. Oh, sorry, I swore. What a like that
It's
chick,
fine.
look at all this stuff she's saying, like what an idiot. Then cool. I don't care. But it's my experience with
Yeah.
it. And I think that it's pretty valuable to share that. I think that there is a lot of damage to be done with not because it's important to consider that, especially as women. I've seen and heard some coaching and some people giving these cycles to girls without explaining anything to them, and then they're couple months or couple years later with these side effects and these things that are long term, and they're freaking out and they're like, I didn't know, oh my God. And it's like, how did you not know? Like you should have just looked it up. But on the other hand, they didn't have someone telling them that like, hey, this could happen, by the way. So I don't know. I just why not be transparent at this point? It's the day and age. You're telling me that you're looking at a professional bodybuilder and you think they're natural? Shut up.
There are still those idiots out there, unfortunately, and I
Come
love
on.
they'll be the ones they'll comment on my thing. Do you think so and so is natural? And it's like, dude, they are an IFBB pro that compete at the Olympia. That's literally how I just responded to them. I was like, what do you think? And then some of them might come back to like, oh, she's probably well, she says she's natural, and I was like, yeah, and OJ said he didn't kill those people. So, what do you want from me, basically? So, but it's just, yeah, I really appreciate you being open and honest. I mean, the one that broke me is that, I heard people talk about a 14-year-old woman that was on D-ball, and then you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah. See, I had that reaction too.
20, don't you ever. You're under 20 years old. Don't even think about it.
Oh, the amount of 18 and
Think about
19-year-old
it.
the 18 and 19-year-old guys, I mean, that's a whole different topic where they're really just
Yeah.
gonna, they're not gonna be good. But even the women too, I've had 18, 19-year-olds on that, like, off
Yeah.
the record, I'll be like, oh, so you do anything? And then they'll tell me what they do, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Not like in a mean way, but just like,
Yeah. Well, because they think that that's what you have to do, but then there aren't people saying like, yeah, 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 cool, that'll get you where you want to be, but at a price, honey. Like there's always a price to pay for these things, and we forget about that because it's so hush hush. I don't care. I've done it.
hey, I appreciate that. More people, I think, need to be like that, because I've always told people, and I even made a post about it yesterday, where it's like, I have nothing against steroid use. The only problem that I have is if you ever promote it, or if you use it for financial gain, or if you convince people to use it for financial gain. Like, I've talked to some people who know people that the only reason they got on was because the guy that was their trainer was selling it, and then honestly, just to make money. Which, again, I've heard that multiple times too. So that's the only time where I'll ever call you out, is if you ever like that one post I made yesterday, where I mean, this won't be released, for yesterday, but like, it was of that D-bag who was like, watch me and my bros take a cycle, and that's them like injecting themselves, and then it's like them going to
Yep.
party, and it's like, dude,
No,
what
that's
is
ridiculous.
yeah, it's like, do not,
Ridiculous.
like, it's like, if you're that desperate for clout, just go to like North Korea or something like that. Honestly, that
Exactly.
you'll get a better response
No.
there. So, but I
Yeah.
mean, this is also, it's a sport where, unfortunately, for the female side, you do have to, sort of have a balance between the muscles and the femininity, and a lot of people,
Yep.
unfortunately, have that belief where you have to choose one or the other, and that's, something that I've seen, unfortunately, happen. But honestly, you've made that balance very, very well. It's
Thank you.
it, it's great. And how have you been able to do that? And what advice do you have for people just finding that balance? Because so many people, like I just said, they honestly have that belief that it's got to be one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, I've always prided myself on my femininity, and I've made sure that that was something that, like I said, I joke that like I was going to do anything at all costs. But on the other hand, too, I made sure that I maintained, what I had, and I really held that I wanted to maintain my femininity and not push it that far. So I think it just comes down to their own personal comforts with things, right? And what they're willing to do, what they're willing to sacrifice. Again, like I said, there's always a price with things. Your sacrifices are what you're going to be comfortable with doing. It was something that, there have been coaches that have recommended things to me that I said, no, because it just wasn't comfortable. And I think that's kind of how I've been able to walk that line. And again, being really introspective with myself was really helpful.
If there was one moment in your career so far that you have the most pride in, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I have the most pride in. I mean, winning the pro card was kind of the top cheese, right? That was kind of the big thing. Besides that, I would say I had always made a goal. You see the posters and stuff at shows. I was like, I want to be on one of those. That is my goal. I'm gonna do that. And I think the day that I was successful with that was probably it was earlier in my career, and I made it my absolute goal that I'm going to be on a poster. I'm going to win this overall. Let's do this. And I made that goal, got it, achieved it. And I think I still have it actually downstairs. I have myself on the poster, printed it right away. I was so excited. So that was a really cool moment for me.
Well, and we got to talk about a hard subject to wrap things up, because when you lose your pet, it's one of the hardest things. I don't care what anyone says. For me, when my parents' dog died when I was still with them, it was devastating for me. And I'd had grandparents die, and the dog one was just as impactful to me. And you can hate me all you want for saying
100%.
that, but honestly, I was like 9 or 10 when my grandparents died, so it wasn't really, but like I was like 20 when my so how did you deal with the grief? Because so many people don't talk about, especially losing a pet, where a lot of people don't think it's that big of a deal, honestly. But how do you deal with that? Because
Yeah.
to me, yeah, it's like it's just as big as losing, because they are family members, basically.
Yep. Yeah, similarly, not well. You ride the waves as they come. The grief is heavy. I would say it's definitely still there in a lot of ways because, she was it's her and I. That was our thing. I wasn't ready to kind of live life without her anymore. And it made a huge impact on my life. And I think being able to have bodybuilding as an outlet was really important, but having the people that I had in my corner was really important as well. Honestly, without them, I would have been toast.
Well, don't do what my mom did where she said, "I'm never gonna get another dog again," and then 1 month later, she gets the same breed, the same color,
Yeah,
the dog looks exactly like the one that we had. That
asking
dog
for
is
it.
still alive, but it's we gave her so much crap for it where it's like, "Really?" And then you go and get the same exact dog, except the dog doesn't behave anywhere near the first one where I just found it so hilarious. It's like you went and got basically a clone of the dog. So, hey, more power to it. And I love the new dog and everything like that, but it's just hilarious how it's like, just get a different breed, honestly, like that, or just try something new. But yeah,
No
so
way, no way. I'm gonna get the same breed. I got my parents a dog to kind of help
mhm.
me that in between because I wasn't ready yet. I'm a little more ready now. I've actually been looking quite a bit, so I think I'm gonna end up with another one in the next little bit here. But it's a long process. You just gotta ride the wave.
Well, here's the problem. They have cabochons, and little dogs are all right to me, but it's like if I ever got a dog, it would be a medium size or up, where it's like I want
Yep,
to I want to have a dog where I could let it outside and not worry about like a coyote coming for it or anything like a
true.
big dog or anything like that. Like there's an Alaskan Malamute that I don't know if it bred with a Great Dane or anything like that, or its dad was a Great Dane or mom was a Great Dane, where that thing is like twice the size of regular Alaskan Malamute, and it's like when that dog goes on walks, its owner is like 6 feet tall, and that dog is at least 3 feet tall when it stands on its thing. So it's like that's a dog where you don't have to worry about, like, you can let it outside and just like when it wants to come in, you can just let it in. You don't have to watch it or anything like that. But I wouldn't go
Yeah,
that extreme, but just like I'm just so used to little dogs where it's like I want a dog that like you can actually like kind of play with. Not like,
meaty, nice big meaty
yeah, a dog
dog.
that you can smack around. And when I say smack around, just you give it the pats and
Yeah,
everything like that. Where it's
whap
just,
on the butt. But you got
yeah,
their big old
exactly.
butt cheeks, and you just whap them on the butt
Yeah, if
cheeks.
I did it to my dog now, I mean, she might go flying and might just be like, yeah, she's like a little like she's like a 8 or 10 pound dog or something like that. So yeah, she's pretty tiny. But yeah, so what plans do you have for the rest of the year? Obviously, you're not competing, but what are your goals for the rest of the year, just in other areas?
Well, the show season is ramping up right now. Like I said, I've got a lot of posing clients, so a lot of shows coming up. My biggest thing right now is, like I said, my best friend and my coach, Allie. She's got some shows coming up, so we're gonna go to all of them wherever she ends up. She's looking freaking incredible this year. So, truthfully, my big goal is just stage momming the hell out of her this year and getting her to the O. That's the main goal. It's always the goal, right? And frig, man, she's there this year. She looks incredible. So that's kind of my priority. And then just living life, doing things, living life, getting back into the gym and slowly putting myself back in there.
Well, I'll have to send her a message and see if she wants to come on herself. I'd be
Oh,
glad to have her on
I'm
and talk to
telling
her.
you, she looks incredible.
You can be completely honest, and I don't care if she listens to this or not, but how jealous are you
Yeah.
when you see that look and then you look at yourself now?
Oh, oh, it's insane. I tell them all the time, like, my FOMO is beyond. Like, it is insane. Like, the jealousy, the FOMO, like, it's not even necessarily jealousy because it's a little different because they're my friends, especially some of my guy friends that are competing in a couple weeks there too. I'm like, I just want to look like you so bad.
Yeah. Well, and
It's fun.
lastly, you mentioned before that like a lot of times you have people come to you very emotional about comparing themselves to others. How do you respond to that, and how do you help them deal with it? Because that is a problem that I see all the time, especially with social media, where a question I normally ask most guests is like, how do you deal with, not just becoming a stalker basically and against the people that you're going to compete against, but how do you personally try to not compare yourself to others as much? Because unfortunately, this is a sport of comparing yourself to others, but
Yep.
so many people aren't able to just leave that on the stage.
Totally. It took me years to be able to separate that, truthfully. I'm really good at it now where I just don't care. It's a little bit different when you're deeper in a prep. Obviously, we all kind of get that little mentality where you're constantly looking like, oh, who's competing against me? Who's showing up? Where are they going to be at? So you got to really rein it in. But for the most part, my girls are very receptive when I'm talking to them timeline wise. You got to really break it down timeline wise and let them see. And I've got this one girl actually, the one that came to me just hysterical. And I started showing her comparisons of where we started from before. I'm like, you need to really kind of step back and look at yourself and be proud of where you come from. And, you know, some of them need the gentle hand holding. Some of them need you to tell them to just pull their heads out of the butt. That you kind of learn how you got to talk to each one of them. But for the most part, just really pulling them back when they're in that area and reminding them of the timeline. Stop looking. If you've been in the same position and you don't look the same, I got some questions. Maybe check your work ethic. I don't know. I got some questions. But if you're looking at a girl, who's a tenured Olympia pro and you've only been training for a few months and you're having a fit, relax. Or this isn't the sport for you.
And if it's vice versa, if you've been training for that long and then someone that's been training for 2 months looks better than you, then you might want to really have a conversation about
Got some other
yourself, obviously.
questions in
Then we
general.
have some
Yeah,
other
I
things,
mean,
yeah.
we got questions, right? There's obviously genetic components to things like that, but like, ah, what boxes aren't you checking? Like, are you collecting your perfect days? Are you checking your boxes? Can you be better? Then let's be better.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And again, Shannon, I cannot thank you for coming on and for talking to us. It was an absolute delight, and I can't wait to talk to you again and just see what the future has in store.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.